Hello and welcome to South Asia Today, a show that provides you the glimpses of South Asia. I'm your host Shivangi Mishra. Let's begin with the headlines first. China's interference in democracies gets called out. Municipal workers hold demonstrations amid political crisis in Gilgit-Baltistan. And people celebrate Toda festival in India, Shimla city with fervor. Let's begin the show. When the world is grappling with runaway inflation, India is one of the few countries that have shown unusually progressive signs. It has not just performed remarkably well at the economic front, but has successfully contained the rate at which inflation has hit. Numbers suggest that India has not just outperformed the emerging economies, but the developed ones too. Let's dive a little deeper into the issue and understand how Indian economic strategy has played out well to check inflation.
India has absorbed COVID-induced shocks far better than most other countries, be it fiscal policy, monetary policy, macroeconomic outlook, or by keeping a constant check on retail and wholesale pricing. India's economic growth has been particularly impressive in comparison to many developed economies, who have yet to bounce back from the pandemic and its after effects. Global economic growth is expected to fall drastically over the next 2 years. However, India appears to be bucking the trend, with major international financial agencies like Morgan Stanley praising India's economic acceleration. India's retail inflation eased to 6.77% in October, from 7.41% the previous month. Food inflation also decreased by over 1.5 percentage points to 7.01%, from 8.6% a month before. Fuel inflation also experienced a dip, falling to 9.93% from the 10.39% in September. India's strong economic foundation and recent prudent financial decisions have been seen by many as the reason the Indian economy continues to flourish.
It's very unusual to see for almost a year that Indian inflation numbers are lower than developed economy numbers, for example, the US, UK. But that has been the case. One of the major reasons was when the pandemic happened, we did not go overboard on the fiscal stimulus. It was very targeted stimulus to make sure that the poor and the vulnerable do not lose livelihood, they get food on time, etc. But it was not an open-ended X amount of money per month check for everybody.
Shakti Kanta Das, the governor of India's central bank, the Reserve Bank of India, correctly predicted that adhering to the RBI's measures would help contain inflation below 7%. In fact, the Consumer Price Index inflation is predicted to drop to below 6% by the end of the fiscal year. It is such successful policies that have helped India become the world's 5th largest economy. The RBI has raised the repo rate, or the rate at which it loans to banks, to control inflation. The most recent repo rate rise by the RBI was by 50 basis points.
The Monetary Policy Committee of RBI has definitely been successful in taming the inflation by changing monetary policy tools to control the money supply and thereby control the inflation.
Global oil prices have also spiked, owing to an increase in geopolitical tensions due to the Russia-Ukraine conflict. The supply chain disruption that followed has only added to already mounting inflation throughout the world. Many predict that if global oil prices were to fall, the prices of other commodities would follow suit. However, given the unsuccessful attempt at a ceasefire between Russia and the Ukraine, oil prices will likely stay sky high for the foreseeable future. India, however, thanks to her diplomatic policies, has been able to put her citizens first and keep oil affordable. India was able to purchase a sizable portion of its oil imports at a lower cost, which also had a positive impact on the country's inflation rates. Although the inflation rates have remained above the RBI's tolerance band of 2 to 6%, they have stayed below 7% and have not so severely affected consumers, as is being experienced in many other parts of the world. The government has also attempted to contain inflation through different means. The government's national monetization pipeline has the potential to release over 73 billion USD by monetizing the assets of public sector units. The government has also made the best use of its foreign exchange reserves to lower inflation by intervening at crucial times to subsidize the price of essential commodities. India's economic plan has helped it recover from the pandemic and its after effects, and many are optimistic that this same foundation will help the country flourish even further. With thanks to its economic principles, policies, and people, the Brand India approach will continue to keep inflation at bay and will continue to protect the needs and well-being of Indian citizens.
Moving on, China under President Xi Jinping's leadership has been accused of meddling in the affairs of foreign countries across the world. Beijing has spent years developing strategies to influence politics and elections throughout the Pacific Rim, and the trend seems to be growing. We have a report.
Canada is reeling over Beijing's alleged spying and foreign interference in Canadian elections. The tensions between the two countries came to a head in a heated exchange between Chinese President Xi Jinping and Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau at the G20 summit in Bali. Canada has accused China of targeting Canadian institutions and democracy. A recent report by the Canadian network, Global Television, alleged that China covertly funded at least 11 federal candidates in the 2019 Canadian general elections. Beijing's alleged interference not only created a storm in the Canadian Parliament, but has also created an increasingly hostile rift between Beijing and Ottawa.
This is really, for me, an unprecedented situation from the Chinese side. So I look rather grim in regarding the future. That I think we must expect more of such kind of statements.
China, under President Xi Jinping's leadership, has been accused of meddling in the affairs of foreign countries across the world. According to the American think tank, Council on Foreign Relations, China also appears to be increasingly interfering in U.S. elections through intensive lobbying, control of foreign media outlets, and sophisticated disinformation campaigns. A report filed to the Justice Department under the U.S. Foreign Agents Registration Act indicates that China has spent $280 million USD over the last 6 years to influence U.S. politics, more than any other foreign country. Beijing has spent years developing strategies to influence politics and elections throughout the Pacific Rim, and the trend seems to be growing. In Australia, for example, Beijing-linked donors directly paid prominent politicians in an attempt to steer Australian foreign policy more favorably toward China. China has also supported pro-Beijing businessmen and women to take over control of the majority of local Chinese language media in New Zealand, Taiwan, and parts of Southeast Asia.
China has a policy called gray zone warfare, in which information and disinformation are a key and important part, and this is played around the world. In that, having greater influence over the media organs of those countries, target countries, whether in the West or in Australia or any other country, India also included in that, so that the favorable communication comes out of these and looks as if it is genuine.
Many South Asian countries have also fallen victim to China's debt trap diplomacy. Beijing's interference into domestic politics in Sri Lanka, Pakistan, Bangladesh, and Nepal, among others, has been increasing. In the recently held elections in Nepal, the Chinese Communist Party worked hard at unifying and supporting the Nepal Communist Party. The CCP aims to ensure that the Nepali government will support China on top issues of Chinese concern, such as Taiwan and Tibet. Beijing also seeks clear commitment of Nepali participation in their Belt and Road Initiative. China remains a significant threat to democracy throughout the world. If allowed to go unchecked, there is no telling which lengths an expansionist Beijing will go to in order to promote Chinese interests.
Now let's take a look at a few happenings in Asia in a segment called Asia Watch.
Local Iraqi music troupe Jumar performs in the street of Basra to entertain passers-by and revive the city's famed musical heritage. Performing traditional songs, troupe members took it upon themselves to bring back joy to the city of Oud, which was under political distress and control of religious factions, diminishing the existence of art and music. This new phenomena was somewhat surprising to the local community, explained troupe founder Ali Al-Madani, especially as the troupe includes female members. But with time, the acceptance grew and people started requesting their presence. A truckers' union in South Korea held 16 rallies nationwide, including a head-shaving protest at transport hub Uiwang, where hundreds of truck drivers pledged to continue defying the government's start work order and to demand a minimum pay system. South Korea ordered about 2,500 striking truckers in the cement industry to return to work on Tuesday, an order that the Cargo Truckers Solidarity Union (CTSU) called undemocratic and violent, and evidence that the government was unwilling to engage in dialogue. The government is unwilling to expand a minimum pay system beyond a further 3 years, while the union said it should be a permanent and wider in scope. Negotiations will resume, but union officials say the gap is still too wide to reach a compromise. Japanese motorbike giant Yamaha Motors recently introduced a variety of car parts under its banner Performance Damper in Hakone, Kanagawa Prefecture. The speciality of products under the Performance Damper edition is that these products have the ability to absorb noise and oscillation of running car. It is also helpful to make the vehicles comfortable to ride in. In the year 1989, Yamaha Motors started development of a new kind of technology called chassis technology. Keeping in mind the latest motorbiking technology and the comfort and safety of the driver, these distinctive types of products are developed. At the experience event, motor journalists compared driving and operating sensations in both cars with and without a performance damper. A high-end vehicle appears to be one of the most comfortable to drive in. Performance damper is integrated of a driver and a passenger-friendly car. After 1997, the performance damper was installed on many Toyota cars and other companies' cars. The arrival of autumn in Japan and Hanuki's landscape, the highest mountain Fuji, served as an appropriate backdrop for the presentation of Yamaha Motors' latest technology. Winters in Yokohama is a sight to behold. This year's winter season in Yokohama became even more picturesque with the installation of gorgeous illuminations. This year is the third one where illuminations have been installed in Yokohama. Year after year, these illuminations are getting bigger and grander. Cooperative hotels and other facilities have also increased in the town, thus making nightlife even better in the city. These illuminations in Yokohama, Japan have slowly become popular all over the world. New trial is the projection mapping. On the wall of the building, a beautiful image is reflected. A street walker can easily join and enjoy it. Especially during the special 5 minutes, which are held 8 times a day, illuminations throughout the city are synchronized with the music to add multiple colors. The winter air in Yokohama is clean and fresh. Japan has started using renewable energy to solve the problem of energy consumption and electricity. Events like these are attracting tourists from all around the world to Japan.
People in the illegally occupied Gilgit-Baltistan region had years of disappointment in the form of state discrimination and state atrocities. The people here have outrage against the government sitting in Islamabad for keeping this region underdeveloped and backward. The employees of this municipal corporation carry out the demonstrations as they believe the Pakistani government is systematically exploiting the region in terms of resources.
Scores of employees of local council and municipal corporation staged a demonstration outside the Chief Minister's residence in illegally occupied Gilgit-Baltistan to raise their demands of salaries and allowances at par with their equals in Pakistani provinces. They accused the government of discrimination and said the authorities were deliberately delaying the process for years. Demonstrators said they were severely hit by runaway inflation and the government, which was supposed to provide them a safety net through welfare schemes or allowances, had turned a blind eye to their plight.
यकम जुलाई 2022 से जो आम जितने भी डिपार्टमेंट्स हैं गिलगित बल्तिस्तान के सबको 25,000 रुपये हो गए हैं, जबकि यकम जुलाई 2022 से हम वहीं पुरानी सैलरी ही ले रहे हैं 16,000 रुपये, जिससे सर इस महंगाई में हमारा गुजर बसर बहुत मुश्किल में पड़ गया है सर कि हमारा बड़ा कोई दूसरा रास्ता नहीं था। इसलिए हम पहले बार भी आए थे यहाँ पे जब कैबिनेट की मीटिंग चल रही थी, उस वक्त हमें यहाँ से तसल्लियाँ दे के हमें भेजा था, लेकिन अभी दोबारा यहाँ पे अभी कैबिनेट की अंदर मीटिंग चल रही है तो हम यहाँ पे हाजिर हुए। 14 सर 10 सालों से हम लोग ओवर एज होने वाले हैं सर, और हमारा कोई बस और कोई रोज़गार नहीं है। इन इदारों में हम अपनी ड्यूटी सही देते हैं सर, सही टाइम से आप हमारा चेक कर सकते हैं। हम अपनी ड्यूटी में के दौरान कोई बेईमानी नहीं कर रहे हैं, तो फिर हमें भी दूसरे मुलाज़मीन की तरह हमें भी 25,000 मिलना चाहिए।
The government employees have been demonstrating against the government for weeks, but to their dismay, no action has been taken thus far. The government has time and again made hollow promises, but has never followed through. The employees, however, are determined this time and say they will not give in to any form of tactic or intimidation. Their numbers are growing with every rising sun, and the strikes are snowballing into massive protests. Demonstrators present in front of CM's house said people at the same position in Pakistan were earning as much as 60% more than what they did.
मैं खुद तो तकरीबन ये 13-14 साल में मेरी सर्विस हुई। वहीं पहले तो हम सबसे पहले तो हम 4,000 रुपये करते थे, उसके बाद 7,000 हो गई, फिर उसके बाद 16,000। अब ये 16,000 से आगे वज़ीर-ए-आज़म ने भी लेटर दिया है और वज़ीर आला ने भी लेटर दिया है, और हमारा 25,000 पूरा नहीं होता है। इसमें रुकावट ये है कि भाई हमारा सेक्रेटरी खुद है, इधर आकर ब्रीफिंग नहीं देते थे। भाई हर कम्युनिटी से पहले आकर इधर ब्रीफिंग देना चाहिए कि भाई हमारे मुलाजिम हैं, सबको पक्का किए, हमारे मुलाजिम पक्का क्यों नहीं हो रहे हैं।
This is not an exclusive case of discrimination in the illegally occupied Gilgit-Baltistan. Pakistan, which has held the region for over 7 decades, has meted out a second-class citizen treatment to the natives of this region. While some say it is part of Pakistan's state policy to keep the people of Gilgit-Baltistan marginalized, others call it a blatant violation of human rights. The fact in the end remains that people in this region are suffering and there appears no light at the end of the tunnel.
Moving on. Festivals have always played a major role in shaping India's culture and history. While some festivals in India are celebrated all around the subcontinent, some of them are restricted to a particular area or community. One such festival is that Toda, which is organized by a Rajput community in India's Shimla city. Take a look.
As the sound of drums reverberated in the air, people in the Jubarhatti village of Himachal Pradesh, an area approximately 20 kilometers from the capital town of Shimla, gathered together to celebrate the Toda festival. Celebrated majorly in Sirmaur, Shimla and Solan districts of Himachal Pradesh, the festival showcases the state's culture and traditions and gives out loud the message of environment conservation and preservation.
रही बात संरक्षण की, पर्यावरण की, तो पर्यावरण के बारे में भी हम लोगों को बहुत जागरूक करते हैं और इन पेड़ों को काटा नहीं जाता जी, हम काटते नहीं है। ये वैसे तेल वाली लकड़ी है और ये हरी भी जल जाती है, तो जहाँ तक पर्यावरण का सवाल है इस लकड़ी को जंगल में बहुत नहीं काटते हैं और जब इसके बीज इधर उधर हो गए तो अब ये बहुत फैल चुकी है जी।
A traditional fair called Nokhi or Anokhi Dali is organized for a span of 2 days where villagers gather and play an old traditional game of bows and arrows. Toda is a game of archery where the target is a dancing human. It is played between two teams called as Pasha and Sata, who identify themselves as descendants of Kauravas and Pandavas. Villagers also offer prayers to a wild species of olive tree which is quite rare to find. They believe that this tree is associated with Narsimha, an incarnation of Lord Vishnu. Though the Toda dance is the main attraction of the fair, locals also participated in different games and activities.
आपने देख ही रहे हैं कि हमारे सूबा यहाँ पे 7 बजे जो नौजवान है कबड्डियों के मैच करवा रहे हैं। आज 11 बजे तक हमारे पास 30 टीमें आ चुकी थी, वो भी जूनियर सीनियर अलग से कोई 10-11 टीमें सीनियर की भी अभी 11 बजे तक आ गई, उससे बाद और तो हमारे जो नए बच्चे हैं यहाँ के जितने भी नए बच्चे हो, चाहे महिलाएं हो चाहे बुजुर्ग हों, सभी इसको जो है हमारा तीर कमान है इसको मुझे नहीं लगता कि कभी भूलने वाले हैं, क्योंकि इसमें बहुत एक पुरानी जो संस्कृति देखने को मिलती है और लोग भी हमारे जो तीर कमान वाले आते हैं बड़ी दूर दूर से, इनका भी जो प्रदर्शन रहता है वो बहुत एक सराहनीय है, ये भी धन्यवाद के पात्र है।
Locals believe that this 200-year-old fair not only preserves the traditional sport of Toda, but is also organized to please the local deity and preserve the region's culture and tradition. It is fairs like these that are a unique blend of religious beliefs, sports and nature conservation that the youngsters of the country are still in touch with their roots.
It's time for me to wrap up today's episode. We will be back next week at the same time. This is Shivangi Mishra signing off on the behalf of the entire production team of South Asia Today. Goodbye and take care.